Views expressed on this show are those of the host, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other advertisers. This station holds no responsibility for the validity or accuracy of information on this show.
Please keep in mind that although we are counseling professionals, the information shared on our show is for ministry educational purposes only. Also note that topics discussed are reflective of supporters who contact us desiring to have a deeper knowledge of these topics. No information is shared on our show based upon our counseling experiences. Topics are for the encouragement of marriages, families, and communities as God desired for us to minister.
And so as we move on into today's show, we definitely want to introduce the topic for tonight. And that topic is internet dating that led to marriage. And so we have two wonderful individuals here, outstanding couple that are going to be joining us tonight, talking to us about how they became to be husband and wife. And what we would like to do at this time is give them the opportunity to introduce ourselves. And so, sir, ma'am, if you will, just give us your name, maybe where you're from, maybe some hobbies, maybe what you do for a living, and then we'll just continue on in the show from there.
Hi, I'm Bobby Britton, currently 57 years old, live in Pensacola. I currently work for the government, and my hobbies are motorcycling and also tinkering around in the garage.
And I'm Tony Britton, and I, of course, live in Pensacola, Florida with him. I am 61 years old. I am happily retired as of the beginning of 2022, and I like creating new uses for old things. I like cooking, I like sewing, I like all the, I know it's crazy, domesticated things.
All right.
That is so cool. And so we're just going to jump into it for the sake of time. We got questions. I am so happy. And even when we've shared with individuals about internet dating and things like that, they're like, look, ask this question, that question. So y'all forgive us. Anywho, so to kind of dig deep a little bit, I heard Bobby mention he's 57, Tony 61. Internet dating, like, were y'all married before? You know, what led to internet dating? What was the time that if you were married before, between then and deciding to date on the internet?
Well, for me, I was previously married for 28 years.
Okay.
I've been off divorced for 2 years, and I was currently at a motorcycle event with one of my partners, and I looked over at his phone and I seen blackpeoplemeet.com.
Okay.
I said, hey, what is that app? I didn't tell him. Later on that night, I went home and I signed up for the app. So that's basically where it began. Signed up for the app and had been on the app for about 2 months, not 2 months, 2 weeks. Been on the app for about 2 weeks and going through certain hits, you know, didn't know what they were, but most of them I didn't really want anyway. So one day when I was tinkering around in the garage, I had my phone on the kitchen table. So I was going back and forth from the garage to the kitchen, and I hit a like on Tony's picture, and, you know, back and forth, probably over a few hours or so, got a like back, and that's where the journey began with the conversation on blackpeoplemeet.com.
And so for me, I had been online dating for about 6 years before I met Bobby. I'd been married for 25 years and got divorced in 2010. And that's when I created my account, created accounts on all of the different dating platforms, didn't know anything about it. And so I'd been on for about 6 years. I'd get on, be on for about 3 months, and then I'd get off because it was exhausting and it was very hard and it was discouraging. But I always wanted to be married again. And I knew that I had to be persistent and consistent. So I would get on, get off, take a 3-month break or a 6-month break and get back on. I was just about to get off in September of 2016 when I got a like from Bobby's profile. So I liked him back, and we just kind of, like he said, spent that day kind of disjointed, very, because I didn't have notifications. He was clearly back and forth from the garage to the kitchen. A long time for a very short exchange. And having been online dating for as long as I was, I learned quite a bit along the journey about what worked and what definitely didn't work, what to recognize, what to stay away from for me, because we all have different desires and things that we're looking for. And so that was the very beginning of how we met. And I liked him immediately.
That's good.
Sentences with punctuation and capital.
Okay. Good. So, when I think about individuals that do online dating, oftentimes we're looking at the younger generation that is really into that. So what was it that really got you to that point where you said, I want to give internet dating a try, and made you just say, I'm all in for it?
Right.
Well, for me, like I said, I had been divorced for about 2 years. So I tried to go back and recreate that younger generation where you go hang out in the club and doing that got tired. So I didn't want that. So I had to try a different avenue. I didn't want too young of a bride. And I had to go for a different age bracket, and I had to learn a different way. And that app was probably the perfect one for me, because I didn't have to go out and try to hang out midnight and wee hours in the morning trying to look for something.
Because he wouldn't have found me there, because I, on the other hand, did not want to be hanging out and going to places, obviously looking for something or someone. I was very intentional. I was looking for my husband. And where, after 25 years of marriage and 49 years old, do you do that? He's not in church. I mean, he might be, but he wasn't for me. So where do you hang out in Home Depot? Go to Longhorn Steakhouse a lot? What do you do? And that's when I decided to try online dating. And I was scared to tell anyone because there was such a stigma attached to it back then. And the first person I actually told was my mom, who was in her 70s at the time. And she said, well, I think you should. Isn't that what everyone is doing now? Which shocked me, because I thought she was gonna kill me. But and so that's why I did it, because it's so different now.
And that's the thing that I find to be interesting as I listen to you. Also, you both had marriages that was 20 plus years. So I am sure that, back then it was probably like us, you meet up and you, as we used to say, macking on each other back in the day or whatever. So you go from that to the internet. And so a lot of people, like Kenya was saying, and how you were saying, Tony, it's like a stigma. Oh no, and this can happen and that can happen. And we learned a lot from the couple or whatnot. So I have to ask this question. One of the things that the younger generation, I guess you could say, because we're not old, we're seasoned, okay? Our generation is seasoned. But the younger generation had mentioned is that they don't give out their numbers. So after they go online, they meet somebody, you both said you liked each other's profiles and things like that. Then what they would do is continue to talk through DMs and then make the decision of whether or not they're going to give the number. So for you all, how did that play out? Did y'all just give number? Did you know that's we did 20 some years ago? How did y'all do that?
Well, for me, you hear all the horror stories about internet dating. So I was still kind of scared. So I had only been on there for 2 weeks. I wasn't giving out my number to tell, but we talked back and forth through the DM, as you say, and finally, I guess Tony got tired of texting. She said, "Hey, here's my number." I have to tell you, honestly, when she sent me her number, I looked at that number probably for like hours. I was walking up and down the hallway. I was like, "Am I gonna call this?" It took me a while to call that number. I don't even think I gave you my number.
You did not.
But it took me a while to call that number. So when I finally did, it wasn't like immediately I called that number. It took me a while.
Well, being the more seasoned online dater of the two of us, I knew that for me, it was important to communicate for a couple of weeks through the DMs. And part of it, I wanted him to ask for my number when I was online dating, not him, but just in general. I wanted them to ask for my number so that I could say, you know, honestly, I would still feel more comfortable if we just continued to conversate this way. If he respected that and said, okay, that was good. If he said, well, we've been doing this online back and forth for this many weeks, if you're not ready to, then that was not my husband. So I was glad that he didn't ask for my number. And so finally I said, hey, why don't you give me a call? Because it's important to move from the inbox to the phone so you can hear the voice and the inflection and the intention and the sincerity. So it was important to do that after going back and forth for 2 or 3 weeks through the DMs. So I gave him the number, and I didn't know that he walked up and down the hall for an hour before he called. But that first conversation was probably 4 hours. Maybe.
Yeah,
Mhm.
And you know, Tony, I really like what you had just said. It seems like you were very intentional, very purposeful in what you were doing and what you were going after, even a safety aspect there to say that, you know, in normal dating, you get to know somebody for a while before these things happen, before we maybe meet up somewhere and do all of this.
Right.
And it seems like you took that same aspect when you went into the online dating to know exactly what you wanted, what you expected out of an individual, and really how you were going to weed some individuals out if you had to. Were there any other safety measures that you put in place for yourself, for Tony, or even you, Bobby, just to make sure that I'm going through this in a nice, smooth fashion? I'm not rushing into anything because I don't want to put myself in a situation where I may be harmed or even hurt from a psychological aspect, a mental aspect in dating.
Mhm.
Well, for me, I think we talked on the phone for probably 2 months?
No,
How
we
long
talked.
was it?
We talked on the phone for about 3 weeks before we met in person. We talked on the phone. We actually
July.
had, we met at the end of September. We actually had a date planned 2 weeks after we started talking on the phone, and I got a sty on my eye. So I called him and said, I need to reschedule. I have a sty on my eye. He later told me he didn't actually believe it. He was still kind of operating under the assumption that he might be being catfish. He didn't think my pictures might be, you know, how old, if she's this age, her pictures don't look like that age. How old are those pictures? He was still in that arena. But as far as safety, I never gave anyone my address. They always had to come all the way to my city. I wouldn't meet them halfway, a third of the way, a quarter of the way, 10 minutes away. They had to come all the way to my city at a place of my choosing and my time. And that's where we had our first meeting. I always either let them leave first or to make sure I wasn't being followed. By the time I got to an actual in-person date with someone, I was pretty sure that they were okay. I learned a lot of surveillance and reconnaissance and finding Facebook pages. And I'm serious because some people present themselves as something that they're not. And you have to be very aware. I became a master at county clerks of court to find out if people were actually divorced. I did, but I had to. And as it turns out, some people were not divorced. So I just learned a lot of things. But the most important thing, I think, for me was that if something made me go, that's weird, I just moved on. I no questions. I learned it means something, honor it, and move on.
And see, I like how you said that, Tony. So to me, you trusted your intuition to be like, nope, something's off on this one, something's off on that one. I really appreciate that. And let me share why. Because you know, Shan is always the one to stir the pot, and I'm about to stir it. It just seems like to me that because I heard the time frame that you said, and as a woman, and then of course, you know, being military, whatever, we have seen over and over again where people will get a divorce, the ink ain't even dry, and they done already moved on with the next and married, and you like, wait a minute, like you said, like Joker, when you just married to this person. And what it seems like, and I hate to say this, I'm not trying to offend anybody, but I'm just gonna keep it real like I do. It seems like the older that ladies get, the more thirstier that they get.
And it
And
makes
so
it for the unthirsty ones.
say that again, say that one more time.
So hard for the unthirsty ladies because gentlemen are expecting thirst all over the place.
And so that's what I'm seeing, what I'm learning is that I don't know if it's this biological clock stuff that's in their head, like I just have to be, I gotta have this or whatever the case may be, but I see more thirstiness in ladies, especially once they got, but to you, it's like, nope, I'm a seasoned internet person. You've done the research. Who would think to go, now I ain't gonna say I probably would have did the same thing. Now I'm about to do some research on you, Joker, because one of the things I was sharing with a couple that we were with last that are in their 20s is that how a young lady told me when I was like, you know what, I think we're gonna have to do a show on internet dating. We know nothing about it, and that's the thing that people are doing to meet each other and stuff. And so she told me to watch the Tinder Swindler.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I'm watching it like, okay, come on now. I know you ain't got played like that. You done gave up your whole savings to get this Joker, your credit card. And the only thing that I could equate to that was thirstiness. So Tony, if you could please talk to the ladies who, you know, may be a little bit older than 20 something and share some nuggets. And then Bobby, what would you share with the guys? Like, please help us out.
Okay. We joke about thirsty when you are more seasoned. I'm not so sure it's thirsty as it is not wanting to go into your next alone. A lot of us are empty nesters and it's lonely. That's not how you anticipated the second part of your life. And so once I healed from my divorce, I knew I wanted to be married again, and I had to be very intentional. So I'm again, with more seasoned ladies, I'm not sure if it's thirst than the desire to have a companion, which in itself is challenging, having been single for so long and letting go of the I can do it all myself notion, making space for someone. When Bobby and I were dating and he would come over and stay in my guest room, and he one time said to me, because I had a 3-bedroom house that I lived in by myself and every closet was full. And he said, do you have room for anyone else? And I think he meant physical room, but metaphorically also, because you're this independent, handling your business. Do you have room for me to be in your life? And I think he meant it in both aspects. I started cleaning out my closets the next week, by the way. He had a point. But that's just being aware of what you want, again, if your desire is to get married, don't interact with someone whose desire on their profile is looking for friendship. Don't interact with them. That's not, know what you want, have your standards, and then don't deviate, period. Everyone's standards are different. I knew what mine were.
What about you, Bobby? What nuggets would you drop for the guys out there?
Well, for me, it started online dating probably late 50s. So I was still new to the game. So I was looking at getting different likes from the moment that my profile went up. I was getting different likes from people from different states. So I know I wasn't going to travel to Washington State or California or Texas, or not saying Texas is bad, but I wasn't going to travel that far to meet a woman. That would have been like a long distance relationship. So I had to sort of figure out what is this app about? The people that I liked or didn't like, the people that were sending me like pictures of different things that I didn't want to see, but I know that wasn't for me. So I had to figure out what was my avenue of approach for going on this particular website. And I was new, I was still scared, you know. I have a story to tell just a little bit about my drive on a little later, but it took me I didn't have much time to figure it out because I had only been on the site for 2 weeks before I met Tony. So I was still new, I was fresh, pretty much didn't know what I was doing. But I'm glad that I did meet her on there because it turned out to be a pretty good occasion.
Mm. And, you know, for me, you know, just listen to the conversation that you guys are having. When you think about that word thirst, I have to agree with Tony there, where it may not be so much as thirstiness as it is you're going into uncharted waters, especially for individuals that came out of relationships for a long period of time. But I also think there's a lot of individuals who are very naive when they go into internet dating. They don't really know what they're looking for. They're almost fall for anything. And we know what people say, if it seems like it's too good to be true, it probably is. So to know that there are individuals that are out there who took that leap of faith to say, I want to have an individual in my life. I'm going to look for that on the internet, but I'm going to take precautions. I'm not going to be naive. I'm going to be safe. There are going to be boundaries that are going to be there. And I think that's very important from every aspect, regardless of if you're a man or a woman. I think as a society, what we have done with both men and women, we put a lot of pressure on them to say by a certain age, this is where you should be, this is what you should have. And I think that forces individuals to say, I have to move quickly. And when you move too quick, sometimes you put the horse before the cart and it don't work out too well. And I think slowing down, taking time, getting to know people, having those boundaries to say, hey, look, you can come over, but you're not staying, you know, or we're going to meet at a certain area, like you said, Tony, in my town where I'm comfortable. I'm not going outside of my comfort zone because you're not going to be reading about me in the paper, you know, in a couple of weeks. And then when it comes to men, Bobby, I heard you say something. You said you were scared. And I think once again, it's nothing against a man being scared, but it is uncharted territory, if you will. And it's like, if you've already gone through something, you want to take the steps, because if I've already been hurt, if I've already went through some letdowns, I don't want to experience that again. So I have to be careful in the things that I'm doing.
So let me ask, because I asked this of the couple as well, the last couple. So you got your profiles up. What was it about? So Tony, I'm gonna start with you. What was it about Bobby's No, let me take that back, because Bobby liked first. Didn't he like first? Did he say like first? Bobby, what was it about Tony's profile, since you was 2 weeks in the game, to where you was like, okay, what was it about her that made you want to like it? And then the same question for you, Tony. And then I think the piece is where you all wanted to take it to the next level and, you know, go from the DMs to the meeting each other. What was it about? Because, you know, like y'all said, people be catfishing. They be lying out here in these streets. So what was it like? Dang, is she, because I'm sure y'all probably didn't lie on y'all's profiles, I'm hoping. So what was it about it that y'all could share?
Well, my profile wasn't very long, and I had a picture up that I found out was very good. So I was strictly clicking through pictures, looking at, you know, it was the physical attraction, basically was the like. But after you get past the physical attraction, you read the bio. So I think after reading the bio, that I was more attracted to the picture than I initially was, because her bio was very thorough. I mean, it was very thorough and it was very sincere. So I think it was the bio for me that attracted me to the picture even more.
Okay. And it's funny because my bio is thorough, but it's very, very accurate. And so when the first line of my bio says, you know, after the whatever, I'm smart, funny, and sensitive. And so every now and then I'll have to say to him, but I told you I was sensitive. I said, but you knew I was sensitive because I told you I was. So that was kind of funny. But as far as his profile, you know, honestly, online dating, I kind of created in my mind a side hustle of helping men put together their online dating profiles because they don't do a great job of it. His profile said looking.
Did it?
Yes. And the picture that he had does not look anything like this gorgeous husband. Doesn't look anything like him. What attracted me to him was the respectful way he approached me in our very first contact. I had a lot of gentlemen, hi baby, hi sweetheart. I don't know you like that. Don't address me that way. And if I try to make a joke to say, doesn't sweetheart come after the first dinner? I'm trying to say that I'm not her. I didn't have to do any of that with him. He started with hello. Wow, refreshing. And so that is honestly what attracted me to him was the kind of man that he is, a respectful, considerate, kind person. I could feel that energy just in our first interchange. When I said, you know, what are you doing on this beautiful Saturday? He said, moving things from one side of the garage to the other.
Still.
Like, okay, all right, okay, yeah. So, but yeah, his profile could have used some work.
That is so funny. Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah. And you know, Bobby, you know, listening to you talking about Tony,
Mhm.
Right.
that it wasn't just the physical attraction. A lot of times we understand that the physical attraction is the thing that draws us in
Right.
to an individual, but really getting to know that person, their makeup, what they're all about, you know, their
Mhm.
interests, their hobbies, their strong points, and even their weak points. I think that's what really keeps an individual. But I
Right.
want y'all to know one thing. I'm a very keen person. I listen to words behind what people are saying.
Mhm.
And Bobby, you leading off with hello. I think you took it back to them late 70s, early 80s with that Lionel Richie, right? I think you dropped that one in there. That was smooth, bro. I'm gonna give you that one.
This so
Thanks.
y'all meet. Y'all decide a location. Tony was really specific. I believe that in my shondo. And so you all meet for the first time. How was the first date? And before that, did you both put some type of safety measures in place? Like y'all had a swing person at the bar chilling, you know, or hey, if you don't hear from me, text it. Like, how did that work?
Right.
Well, for me, I have to tell you about the drive over from Pensacola to Fort Walton. That's about an hour and 10 minutes. So I had an hour and 10 minutes to think about this, right? Driving 98, going to Pensacola to Fort Walton, that's a lot of lights. That's a long way. It took a long time. The closer I got to the location, I'm gripping the steering wheel like, ooh, I'm in catfishing. I'm gonna die. You know? There's something waiting on me over there. So, the closer I got to the location, I just started sweating, right? I got nervous. So I was like, what am I doing? Right? Even though we talked for a few weeks, right? The closer I got to the location, now I finally get to the location. I got to the location before she did. So I parked in the parking lot and I waited on her to, she pretty much told me what car she was in. So I had to wait. You know how we back in like military style, do a reconnaissance. I had to wait on her. So she pulled into the parking lot. She rolled past me. I was looking. I'm like, she looks safe. It looks safe. So as she rolls down a couple of parking spots down from me, she parks. When she parked and got out, then I pulled past her. I drove past her just to see, just to make sure. And I parked. And after I parked, we finally met. She was like, okay, all right, this is her. But I have to make sure.
So this is what's funny. I didn't know he had parked and was under reconnaissance. I pulled in, I parked. I thought I got there before him. So I got out of the car and then he drove past me. And honestly, my first, and remember, we talked on the phone every day for 3 weeks. For a long time in the evening. We had endless conversation about all kinds of things. I still have his profile picture image in my head. And when he drove past me, I said, oh my goodness. I said, look at this handsome man. I said, he doesn't look anything like his picture. And I was so happy. So then we proceed to go into our date, and we had on the same, we were matching.
I don't know how that
On
happened.
our first 2 dates, we were literally matching. But anyway, we get into the restaurant. It's a beautiful setting on the Gulf, beautiful, beautiful. And it was terrible. We had nothing to say. We just sat there like two.
Talk about the food.
We talked about food because it wasn't that good. We had no conversation. It was the craziest thing. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is wrong? We sat there for probably an hour and a half. And it was painful. It was, I kept thinking, are you going to say something? It was terrible. It was. So there you have it.
The background scenery was good.
Scenery was beautiful. So thank goodness after we finished eating and could not milk another French fry, he suggested, is there someplace else that you might like to go? Because at that point, technically the date should have been over, because you don't want a really long first date. You kind of want to know, but we did go to a second location. And once we got there, I don't know why. I mean, the conversation just started flowing. We just started, it was the Bobby and Tony show. We were like just going back and forth. And then it was good. But it was, the first part of that date was awful.
It was a little awkward.
Yeah. Yes. And it's not like it was a blind date, or because we've been talking for weeks. So we don't know why, but it was strange.
And I can see that happening with individuals, because you've been talking for weeks, you put a lot of information out there, and now that you're finally face to face with that individual, it could just be the fact that, wait a minute, I don't want to open up my mouth and something crazy come out, or I want to let this individual talk because I don't want to seem like I'm taking control of the situation. And I think when you guys decided let's go somewhere else, that probably broke the ice and got you to that point where you say, yeah, I can be myself just like we were over the phone or through texting or whatever. But I'm glad to see that you guys, were able to bridge that gap, if you will. And then, like they say, look where you are now.
Come on. Now I'm gonna keep on going because I'm nosy. So we got questions.
Asking about,
go ahead.
we're asking about the safety measures. I always told someone when I was going on a first date with someone, I gave the name. If I could get like a shot of the license plate or a stolen photo or image, I would text it to that person just so they would know where I was going, and I'll check in with you at XYZ time. So I always did that. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
No, I like that part.
Yeah.
I mean, like, oh my God, it's I mean, we in this thing, 20 plus years. So but the thing is, I'm like, the metrics, the measures that was in place, like, I don't usually hear people speak about internet dating and being safe in this way, because you always hear those crazy stories. You know what I'm saying? Like Bobby, I probably would have been like him. Oh, this joke about to knock me over the head. Let me look for some white vans, all of the things, But you up here, secret squirrel, taking pictures of license plates and sending it to people. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
That.
And I think that's a good thing, because I think a lot of people become complacent in dating and in their everyday lifestyles. And they always say, well, that would never happen to me. And in the world that we live in, we see it every day when we turn on the TV or we read the newspaper. There's some young lady or even young men that have went somewhere to meet someone and then they don't come back.
Right.
And so I think that safety aspect that both of you took into account to make sure that this is the person that I said I was going to meet. They don't have anybody riding behind them. There's not another car following.
Right.
I'm sending pictures to my best friend so that she knows I'm okay. I think that's just a great thing that you get to ensure safety for yourselves, but also it showed a sense of safety when it comes to getting into the relationship.
Right.
I'm going into this relationship, making sure I'm covering all the bases before we
Right.
really get deep.
Jesus.
Because
Right.
you don't go out there and jump in the sea and then try to figure out how to swim.
Come
You
come
can't-
on, sir.
I had a situation where I met someone at a restaurant for dinner, and he'd driven 3 hours, I think. He came all the way to where I wanted to. And probably within 10 minutes of sitting down, and I'd spoken with him at length on the phone, he had a very high powered professional position. Um, and within 15 minutes of getting to the restaurant, something didn't feel right. And you know how as women we're taught, oh, be nice, you have to be polite, you don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. Something felt really, really off. And I had to think ahead, what am I going to do? And I ordered appetizers. We ordered appetizers. I waited for the appetizers to come to the table. And that's when I said, I'm sorry, but I'm going to need to leave, because I needed him to have to stay and settle that bill. And I got up and I got out of that restaurant and I got in my car and I drove around for about 20 minutes, making sure he wasn't behind me. And I went home.
Oh, so let me ask, okay, you all been dating, y'all been talking on the phone. What is the time frame of you all going to consider marriage? Like, what was the time from when you all started dating to when you got married? And what for the both of you all was like, I'm willing to do this again. I'm willing to get married again.
You can start this one.
Okay. Well, like I said, I was online dating looking for my husband. So that was always my intention. And I kind of had this thing where I would go on a first date. If someone got through the DMs to the phone conversations to the actual let's meet, I would go on a first date. And if I could sit across from that person and say, I could see myself married to him, I would go on a second date. If I didn't see it, I didn't go on a second date. So every time we went on a date, I was looking forward to the next date with him because I could see it. We wouldn't have gone on a first date if I didn't already feel enough about who he was to meet him in person. And after the first date, I was ready for the second date and the next date. And every time we went out, he just showed me more and more things about who he is. For 10 months, he drove back and forth to my city. I didn't go to his city. Every weekend, he drove back and forth to my city. And he was just like, I knew like very quickly.
Well, for me, I had to take her around different states to meet my family. Went to Louisiana, went to Alabama, went to Texas, we went to Selma, right?
We went to Selma, we went to California.
Went to California.
He took me
met my mom.
everywhere. I didn't know.
So,
Mhm.
your family's gonna tell you like straight out, I'm bringing you here to meet. And what do you think on the side? They all tell me on the side, oh, she's lovely, she's nice, y'all look good together. So we went to 4 different places,
Yeah,
And one of the drives were we went to Texas.
right.
And the drive to Texas, we drove there in a sports car. So it's a 2-seater. So the drive there was 12 hours, 12 hours there, 12 hours back. We made stops along the way. So
I'm a flyer. I don't drive. I don't do car trips. So when he said, I need to go to Texas
yeah.
to take care of some business, would you like to come with me? I was like, yeah, let me know what our flight arrangements are. He said, oh, no, we're driving. I said, oh, no, that's 12 hours. I said, I don't do 12 hours. I don't drive more than 3-4 hours. Otherwise, I'm on a plane. He was like, no, it'll be okay. He said, whenever you want to stop, we'll stop. And we'll make it in 2 days. We'll go half one day, half day. I mean, he was like, come on. I didn't know his ulterior motive was to get me in a 2-seater to see how long could we be in a confined place. And I don't
This
like
close.
being in a car like this close And could we get along? And would it be a good trip? And would it be a fun trip? And we had the best time.
When the trip was all over, you still friends.
Yeah, we liked each other. We had a good time. So it worked out. I've been on car trips since then. Yeah.
It's about, about 6 months for me, 7 months for me. So that we knew that, we're probably going to be together for a while and getting ready.
That
for
was
that
3
stage of
months for
marriage.
him. It was
Nice.
January when we started the road trips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you all decide to get married. Okay, we hear his family was like, she's lovely, y'all are a beautiful couple and things like that. Tony, what was your family's thoughts about Bobby? And when you all got to the point of, we think we're about to get married. Like, did your family, because sometimes families got a lot to say,
Right.
even when you don't want their input. But were they like, we don't really know him like that? Or were they like, go for it?
They loved him. They loved him from the moment they met him. No one had any reservations about him. After my parents met him, the next day, my dad called me and said, so about that young man you brought over here yesterday. I said, yes. He said, I like him. He's a good man. I said, okay, thanks, Dad. He said, I just wanted to let you know. I said, okay. So we joke. I think it's really true. We joke that we have to stay married forever because my parents would kill me and his parents would kill him.
Right.
If anything happened in this marriage. There's no out here because our families would kill us. And we went as we meet people, somebody twice said, okay, come on, when are you guys getting married? And we just gotta look at each other like, we haven't talked about that yet. We haven't said that yet. We have not said that yet. Let's clear the table. So.
Tony and Bobby, I think that is the key when it comes to marriage. We can't become stagnant. The things that we did while we were dating, we need to continue that on even in the marriage. So for you to say that you have individuals, looking at you guys like you're dating and they're asking you, when are you going to get married? I think that's a good sign of a healthy relationship.
Right.
You're not getting to that point where marriage has become stagnant. Oh, I've been married to you for this long and stuff. The newness, as they say, is starting to wear off. You're keeping the fire burning, as they say. And I think that's just a good attribute of how you guys went into the relationship, knowing exactly what you wanted out of it. It wasn't for ulterior motives. And I think that once people go into it with an open heart, an open mind, and being honest, then the fruits come later on. You don't have to worry about all the craziness like a lot of individuals do when they date. They're not truthful with one another. Then you start to see a person's true colors, and then you have to cut them off. And now you're scared to start that over again.
Right. So if I can ask this question, I'm sorry, I got to get the questions in. I'm gonna take it that both of you all are parents. And so what we had learned was speaking with the last couple was some things from their perspective, being in their 20s. What are some things, because Kenya and I may not have did the internet dating, but our kids probably will, because this is where we are at in life. So what are some things that you all would say that maybe parents, advice that you would give to parents? Advice that maybe you would give to parents in the conversations that they would need to have with their children, or to the children of, hey, be careful of this, don't jump into that, things like that. What advice could you all share from a parental perspective with what you all went through with internet dating?
On my perspective, I think in order to internet date, you got to have some type of standards. And you have to stick with those standards, because if you let them down, that's when the devil comes in, and you get people out there who are not who they say they are on the internet. Anybody can disguise yourself on the internet. But when you really, first of all, meet a person, you come to figure out what their true colors are and what their intent is. So that would be my guidance to people just starting on internet dating. And you hear all the stories, you can't not hear them. And it kind of affects you some way or another, but you got to have standards to stick to them.
Yeah. And I would say the safety issue, especially for young ladies, to be very aware of what you're doing. Let someone know when you're meeting someone, where you're going. And again, I think the important piece of this is, what is that person looking for? Are they looking for their spouse? Are they looking for a friend? Are they looking just to date around and have a good time? Because that's going to determine, you know, just like in regular non-online dating, that determines what pool you're going to pull from. But, you know, it's hard to get young people to confide in their parents about what they're doing. And it's a hard question to answer realistically. You can say what you would like to have, but that's not necessarily what those young people are going to do. They kind of think we did too. We have it all figured out in our mind in our 20s. We don't need anybody telling us what to do. So some of it is going to be just like in regular life, those hard lessons that you learn the hard way.
And I think that having those conversations like that is something that's very important for parents to have with their children, or anyone that may be considering online dating. Because just like you said, you know, you don't want children, you don't want people to learn everything the hard way, because there's some things that we find out the hard way that you can't come back from.
Exactly.
And so to speak to what Bobby was talking about, what I'm hearing is that you're kind of talking about discernment, being aware of your surroundings, knowing exactly what it is that you want, seeing the red flags that people are waving in front of you, and then not ignoring them. And then just moving on. It's okay to move on. You know, you go to a car dealer and you're looking for a car, and if they're not talking right, you just go to another dealer. There's another one down the street until you actually get what you want to be in.
Yeah.
So what I have found, even with people my age, because once I met Bobby, all of my naysayer friends were like, oh, you got to help me get a profile. You got to help me set a profile up. I need you to help me set a profile up. And I was more than happy to do that. And you got to tell me what to do. Okay, well, let me see who's talking to you. And let me see. No, you don't want to. Why not? Because of this. Well, maybe no, there is no maybe. But then I don't want to be by myself. Let me just give him a chance. And I'm like, really, you don't want to. It took me 6 years to find him. Take your time. Take your time, get what's right for you. So it's a process. You have to be willing to wait for what is supposed to be for you.
Wow. So I'm asked this question. I asked this of the last couple and probably will ask it of the next. So what, being that we are on an inspirational station, if you all don't mind us asking, what is your spiritual background? Like, what were you raised up in? And how did that, with the two of you coming together, was that an issue, or, you know, with your faiths and different things like that? How does that work?
Well, with me, I was raised Southern Baptist, you know, in Alabama. So all my upbringing was about Southern Baptist Church, and that's all I knew, you know. The ethnic group was 100% Black, basically, and that particular church, and Sunday school on Sundays, and after Sunday school you had the main church, and a lot of times I was the only one going. So that was my background, as far as probably never before the military dated outside of any other religion.
And I was born and raised Catholic, went to Catholic school through 9th grade, and when I got married in my 20s is when I stepped away from the Catholic Church and became more non-denominational or interdenominational, whatever you want to call it. And I think Bobby and I spiritually are kind of in the same place. We're we're spiritual. We're not religious, but we're spiritual. So we are very even in the way we view Jesus, the Lord. We're saved. So we're very on the same page, and I think you should be when you are looking for a life partner.
That is so good.
Yeah, that is good. I
Wow.
think that's just another golden nugget that you have dropped to the listeners. Is
Yes.
being able to get with someone who is on one accord with you. Spiritually.
Come on.
You know, it's one thing to be attached to someone from a physical perspective, but when your spirits align, that's something that's totally different, because fruit is going to be coming out of that. You're going to reap a good harvest.
Right.
The other thing I'll just throw in at the end, and we've got about 4 minutes or so left before we wrap this up. I just got to go back to that part about the safety aspect, choosing your mate, looking at every aspect of that individual. You know, I'll just tell you, I've watched a lot of women buy shoes over the years.
Mhm.
Right.
Cut it out, brother.
My mama, my wife, my daughters. And one of the things that I would say is, you know, when you're dating, you have to treat people like shoes. You're not going to buy a shoe that doesn't fit you.
Or that hurt your feet.
There you go.
Jesus.
If it's not comfortable for you, you don't buy the shoe.
Right.
You don't go buy that shoe and say, oh, maybe it'll feel right if I stretch the leather out. No, if it ain't fitting you right now, it ain't going to fit then.
Come on.
And I think when we're going into dating, we can't be afraid to say no. It's okay to say no, because I'm guaranteeing you, somebody out there, if you do something wild off the cuff, they're going to tell you, you know, as well. So go for what you know, go for what you want to get.
Right. So I must admit, okay, I'm not going to lie. Being the fact that we don't know nothing about internet dating, nothing, zero. I was like, man, that's something that I could probably never do, you know, whatever. But what we're finding is there are couples that, you know, we ask, because that's what we do. Marriage is our thing. So we're like, how did y'all meet? Internet. Amazing couples, such as you all in your stories and your laughter and your family support, I think is so amazing. So we have, you know, a little bit of time left, couple of minutes. What is something, any additional nuggets that you all would like to share for those who may be scared, that are our age? You know what I'm saying? It's like, you know, Bobby seemed like he was shaking like a leaf. I would have been right there with him. What other nuggets do you all have that you all could share with those who are listening on tonight?
I think for me, internet dating, of course, we were older. And I have to say, even though you're older, there's still work to be done on a relationship. Everything is not a perfect, like a puzzle. You know, there's still work to be done. May not be as much work as if you're starting as a teenager, growing into your adulthood, but there's still work to be done, and everything is a work in progress. And there's still, you know, in order to make this thing work, longevity and not repeat anything of the past, it's a work in progress.
Absolutely.
We're currently working on that. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the bottom line is nobody's perfect.
Right.
And you're just looking for someone who has imperfections that you can live with.
Exactly. That's
really the way I see it. Now, online dating is the new produce section of the grocery store. That's what online dating is. And so just like you meet a stranger in the grocery store and agree to meet them for dinner, you don't know any more about them than you do the person on the internet. It's really kind of the same thing when you think about it. You still have to do due diligence with the person that you meet in the produce section. So don't be afraid of something just because it's new, and don't be afraid to walk away. Don't try to make a shoe fit that is too tight, because especially at our age, shoes don't stretch. That shoe is stretched as far as it's going to get. So if it doesn't fit when you put it on, you need to find a different shoe. You cannot change another person. So just keep those things in mind also.
Oh my God. Thank y'all so much for being on our show.
Yes.
This has been amazing. We appreciate y'all sharing y'all's story, y'all's love story. And just being here for the listeners. Miss King, you got anything else before we close out?
No, I mean, I just
My
really,
God.
really appreciate the openness, the honesty, and I look forward. We're gonna have to do this again at some point in time, and we're gonna have to try to link up. I know Texas is a long way, and
From
Tony
Florida.
don't want to get in the car, but we may have to meet halfway. All right.
But yes, this is amazing. So we thank y'all so much for being on the show tonight. For those of you who are watching, for those of you who are listening in via radio, this is our show, Marriage Mondays with the Kings. We had this beautiful couple on tonight. We hope and pray that this has been a blessing. So it's a wrap for tonight's show. We want to thank our sponsors. We want you all to join us back for the next show of Marriage Mondays with the Kings. That is Monday, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. If you want to contact us, you have any questions or any topics that you would like for us to discuss, please go to our Contact Us tab at marriagemondayswiththekings.com. So we want to thank you so much for joining us. And as always, keep it locked right here on KRGN 98.5 FM, The Rock.